Hey everyone, welcome back to a new video. I want to give you a couple of tips, 7 tips on how you can learn languages without actually studying. So if you want to know, then definitely stay tuned.
Hola, hola everyone! After successfully starting our Polyglot French bootcamp, I'm now adding a Spanish-only 30-day bootcamp starting on August 8th. Get access to live Spanish lessons with me, live chats to practice, and many more resources by signing up today at a discounted rate of 50% only this week. Yes, 50%. So take advantage and sign up now.
Alright, so the first tip to learn a language without actually studying is by looking for friends. Looking for people who speak the language you're learning or you're wanting to learn. I can guarantee you that that helps so much. A lot of people actually wait to learn a language first and then to try to speak to native speakers or people who speak that language. But actually, if you do it the other way around, it helps a lot more, way more, to get surrounded by the people who speak the language, to get really like immersed into the language first, and then whilst you're learning the language, it will get way easier because you're already acquainted to words and different vocabulary and things people say, and you know, even if you don't understand exactly in the beginning what it means. I have a good example. My sister, she doesn't speak French, but she knows so many French sentences and phrases. Sometimes she will just randomly ask me like, what does this mean in French? But she never actively learned French. So just like by coming to France and hearing French, she picked up so many French words, complete sentences, where I'm shocked sometimes where she heard those phrases from, because it would just be random and she says, what does this and this mean? And I'm like, where did you hear this? Like, how did you come up with this stuff? And she doesn't know what it means, but she knows exactly how to say it, how to pronounce it and everything. So that exactly goes to show that the fact of her being immersed so much into the French language, she picks up so many things unconsciously and then is able to reproduce them even without knowing what the meaning is. So if you are actually learning at the same time, it will be way easier for you because you will always remember already what certain things mean because you already heard them. So that is why it's important to find community, friends, to find a way to immerse yourself into the language whilst you're learning it. And like that, you learn it without actually like studying. As I said, my sister never studied French, but she can reproduce and recognize a lot of French phrases and words, vocabulary, without even trying, you know. So that is one way to go about it, and I think it is one of the best ways, definitely. The second step to learn a language without actually studying is also one that has to do with the first step, that is immersing yourself into the language. How can you immerse yourself other than by being in a community? For example, of course, by getting input, as much input as you can, through music, through television, through podcasts, anything really that you can do in the language. Try to do that to get immersed into it as much as you can, to hear it as much as you can. So with the example of finding a community and friends, a lot of people have a hard time doing that. Nowadays, you can find so many apps, like for example, HelloTalk, that I will link also down below, where you can find friends in different countries. You can find native speakers on there. You can find native speakers just in many other ways by, for example, doing different hobbies you like and finding people who speak different languages through that. I like dancing, so any type of dance that involves another language, like for example, I dance salsa, I dance samba, so I would go to those classes to actually meet people who are from that culture and who speak their language. I would go to salsa lessons, then I would meet Cubans, I would meet Colombians, you know, I would meet different people who are immersed into that culture, who are from that culture, where their dance is from, and that is how I would make friends with them and actually learn by just communicating with them. That is one way. And as I said, through the music, through lyrics, through watching movies and series, you get even more familiarized with the language. So that is one way that you learn unconsciously without actually sitting down and studying. So when people ask me how many hours a day I study, I always give them a weird look because I don't study. I honestly do not study because I don't like studying. I don't enjoy it, and I think a lot of people don't enjoy it because that's the way we were taught in school. And I just want to show you that there are so many other ways to get involved into learning languages without actually, you know, going the traditional way of just studying and not doing anything else, because that has shown and be proven to not work. So people who actually are fluent in so many languages, the way they go about it is the most natural way, which is being immersed and getting immersed. If you are not naturally already in that environment where the language is spoken, you have to actually go out and look for it. Another way to getting input is by reading books. If you can read books, I would recommend you to actually do audiobooks, because audiobooks will train your listening skills at the same time also your reading skills, doing two things at the same time, and it helps you with both tremendously, because while you're listening to it, you read it at the same time, and that helps you to recognize words when you read them, and that also helps you to pronounce words, because you can read, but a lot of people read in silence. You know, a lot of people, when they read, they don't speak out loud what they read when they're reading books. So that actually helps you to train both, to train your pronunciation, to train your listening as you go with reading. And one of my favorite ways to learn languages without actually studying is traveling. By traveling, you can learn so many languages and pick up so many languages by simply traveling and being that amount of time surrounded by the language constantly, like 24/7. And that is essentially if you actively immerse yourself into the language, because you can travel as much as you want to, but if you don't immerse yourself, don't actively try to get a grasp of the language, you will not really learn anything, you know. But as time goes, even if you travel to the same places, you will eventually learn something. Like the example I gave with my sister, she's not actively trying to learn French. Actually, she hates French. But she learned so many things just by the fact of coming to France so often. And even if she didn't want to, she learned a lot. So imagine if she would actually pursue going after like learning French actively, she would learn even more. That's what I say with traveling. If you're constantly surrounded by the language, you cannot escape it. You will always hear it. And that's, for example, also with my language travels that I do. People are going to be surrounded by the language 24/7. So you can't escape it. You will always hear it everywhere you go. And that actually forces you to you know, be in contact with the language. So traveling is one way to learn languages without actually studying them. That is a way I learned so many languages without studying them. Most of the language I perfected by actually traveling and living abroad, you know, even if I had studied them prior to moving, but I really actually learned them when I moved. I actually learned how to be fluent in French when I moved to France. I learned how to speak Spanish fluently when I moved to Spain, because that's when I was in contact with the language 24/7, and I learned how people naturally speak and not how I was taught in the textbooks. Another way to learn languages effectively without studying them is by playing games in different languages. You can always find games. You can find like board games, you can find any type of online games, you can find so many different games online. A way that is surely like fun is by trying to find a game in the language you're learning, and by that I'm sure you will have fun and not even like notice that you're learning. And another way to learn a language without studying it is to actually follow your favorite social media influencers in the language you are wanting to learn. I did that a lot, and I still do that a lot. I watch a lot of foreign language YouTube videos. I follow a lot of foreign language YouTubers. That is, for example, like Brazilians, French YouTubers, Spanish YouTubers, Spanish speaking YouTubers from Latin American countries. Any language really I'm speaking, I always follow YouTube videos and YouTube channels in those languages, and also I follow them on Instagram. Instagram, because making a YouTube video is obviously gonna be different than actually speaking on an Instagram story, which is much more natural than sitting in front of a camera and, you know, just making a YouTube video. YouTube videos are also a natural way to learn, obviously, but YouTube videos are not gonna be like straight out without any cuts and without any editing, so it's not as raw as, for example, an Instagram story, which is much more natural, as if, you know, we would be talking at a bar or something like that. I always like to follow people I watch on YouTube also on Instagram to watch their stories, and that is a way that you can learn so much additional vocabulary if you don't already know, and if you haven't already heard it. That is a way that you learn how to speak in a natural way and not like a textbook. People will say things that you will not understand at the beginning, but that's totally fine because you can always look up words. Once you look up words, once you get a grasp of them, you will start to notice that they will come up everywhere. And that is also with, for example, watching series or watching movies. Once you hear a word and you learn it, you will start to notice that it will pop up everywhere all of a sudden, because you're actually taking notice of it, like you're recognizing it. So if you can, start to follow foreign language YouTubers or Instagrammers or whatever, TikTokers, whatever social media you want to follow, start to do that. Another way to learn a language without actually studying it is by pursuing your hobbies, doing what you like most in the language you're learning. I've already mentioned that in a couple of other videos. Anything you really like to do, any of your hobbies, try to do them in the language you're learning. Anything you like to do, try to do it in the language you're learning. I don't know, if you like science, try to look for different materials, different like information in the language you're learning. That is a fun and enjoyable way to actually learn something without even noticing that you're learning, and to learn something without studying. So those are the tips. I hope you guys enjoy them and also try them. If you have other tips that you could share with me and with anybody else, then just leave them in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.